As the news of Patrick Agyemang going abroad and just MLS kind of touching the European world, and with all the news coming about, made me think, are we moving into American Soccer 4.0? There's new stadiums popping up, grassroots teams making stadiums, the reach of soccer into more and more smaller towns across America. MLS like interacting with the world. 10 years ago or so, an international transfer was a bit of an odd duck, but now it's something that doesn't even necessarily raise eyebrows, and there's a plethora of MLS players able to make that jump. They're no longer like kind of being held prisoner here, as there once was a time where you didn't really get to bounce out of Major League Soccer. So my point is, are we, kind of edging into American Soccer 4.0? I kind of preface the eras as 1.0 for American soccer would be like back in the pre-war days of the ASL, the early ethnic leagues. 2.0 being the 60s and 70s with the NASL and the other, rotating door of new and failed leagues that led into like kind of the indoor only era of the 80s. American Soccer 3.0, I'm marking it as World Cup 94 and the Major League Soccer era up until about, around now, according to this kind of timeline I'm piecing together here. And then I believe that we are, in the buffer era, maybe at the dawn of American Soccer 4.0. New stadiums, new teams, new investors, new interest, and promotion relegation coming in down the pipe.
Yeah, I think if we're not in 4.0, we are certainly downloading it and getting ready to install American Soccer 4.0 with the influx of money, the changes kind of across the country. Obviously, Messi coming over has sort of painted it with a new brush and brought a whole new audience that maybe soccer was just on the back burner. And as much discussion as there has been in the past about syncing up with the international calendar, as you look at it now, I think it is better suited to have MLS play throughout the summer, just because there is that vacuum of other options, right? And while MLS might not be able to compete with Premier League or Serie A or La Liga in terms of even Bundesliga, in terms of those eyeballs throughout the fall and winter into the spring. When it comes time to summer, there are plenty of people who are still soccer starved and going to be checking out those games. And yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point that with the changes that we've seen, World Cup 26 on the horizon, I think that might be the official. If we look back in 10 years, maybe we'll think World Cup next year will be the official kind of launching point for 4.0. But yeah, I would say we're certainly downloading that update as we speak.
Yeah, because just in the area of the country I'm in, Detroit is in the works of building a brand new soccer-specific stadium. Where you're out on the west side of the Michigan, Grand Rapids is building a soccer-specific stadium. The Chicago Fire are building their second soccer-specific stadium. Fort Wayne going from amateur to the pro ranks. We had a video on Monday about 7 new teams coming into USL 1, the third division of American pro soccer. And most of those teams that we featured were amateurs going to kind of bridging that gap that Detroit did a few years ago, going from that elite amateur summer league status to the pro status, which is kind of like a whole new leap for American soccer. Not too many clubs have that pattern, and that pathway starting to open up in the United States. I mean, Fort Wayne, Indiana, building their own soccer-specific stadium, like that isn't necessarily what you'd think from American Soccer 3.0.
Right. And I think that's certainly part of it. You've seen this work abroad, and now there are investors who say, hey, if we apply this same logic to the States, there is a market here. And I think this was always the plan all along, the long-term play, going way back to, the genesis of MLS. This was the idea, right? Is it's going to be a slow burn. It probably took longer than everybody expected, but I think we are really starting to get to that point where it's not only the top levels, but those lower leagues, those more local outfits where you're going to get people in the community to show up. And if you can start to foster that relationship, if you can get that buy-in with people who are super local, that's only going to scale up as you can get more resources and everything, the infrastructure around the country starts to build up. That's only going to raise the profile of those littler clubs, and hopefully, moving those players up the leagues increases that kind of trickle down effect of the money. And yeah, I think as long as you have those massive clubs, in MLS, there's always going to be people who are just too far away to really fully participate the way that they want to, and they're going to be looking for those more local options. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing right now is, the next level, that lower mid to lower level, really starting to get fleshed out, and hopefully onwards and upwards.
There was even a comment on our video about USL One new teams that maybe we're shooting for a target of 200 new teams are going to be needed to actually have a fully fleshed out pyramid of regionalized leagues and then moving up the way. But if you think about it this way, if these amateur teams are starting to set their sights for the pro leagues between USL 2 and NPSL, there's somewhere in the ballpark of 200 teams there. So maybe one by one, those teams, take a peek there, or, maybe a fraction of them. And that's just a big step towards a new era, possibly American Soccer 4.0.